Day 693, Saturday, July 5th. Zechariah 9. Zechariah 9 1-17. The burden of the word of the Lord against the land of Hadrach, and Damascus its resting place for the eyes of men. And all the tribes of Israel are on the Lord, also against Hamath, which borders on it, and against Tyre and Sidon, though they are very wise. For Tyre built herself a tower, heaped up silver like the dust, and gold like the mire of the streets. Behold, the Lord will cast her out. He will destroy her power in the sea, and she will be devoured by fire. Ashkelon shall see it and fear. Gaza also shall be very sorrowful, and Ekron, for he dried up her expectation. The king shall perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon shall not be inhabited. A mixed race shall settle in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. I will take away the blood from his mouth, and the abominations from between his teeth. But he who remains, even he shall be for our God, and shall be like a leader in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. I will camp around my house because of the army, because of him who passes by and him who returns. No more shall an oppressor pass through them. For now I have seen with my eyes. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you, he is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem. The battle bow shall be cut off. He shall speak peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. As for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set your prisoners free from the waterless pit. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Even today I declare that I will restore double to you. For I have bent Judah, my bow, fitted the bow with Ephraim, and raised up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece, and made you like the sword of a mighty man. Then the Lord will be seen over them, and his arrow will go forth like lightning. The Lord God will blow the trumpet, and go with whirlwinds from the south. The Lord of hosts will defend them. They shall devour and subdue with sling stones. They shall drink and roar as if with wine. They shall be filled with blood like basins, like the corners of the altar. The Lord their God will save them in that day, as the flock of his people. For they shall be like the jewels of a crown, lifted like a banner over his land. For how great is its goodness, and how great its beauty! Grain shall make the young men thrive, and new wine the young women. Daily Deep Dive. The UCG reading plan states, chapters 9-14 of Zechariah contain two undated oracles. They may have been written years after chapters 1-8. Some have suggested a time in the prophet's old age, perhaps later than the Persian conflict with Greece around 480 BC, since Greece appears in this section as a dominant power, though this is not a requirement, as God well knew that Greece would emerge as such a power. The focus of this section of prophecy is predominantly on the end time, with 18 occurrences of the phrase in that day, and it is a heavily messianic section, referring to both the first and second comings of the Messiah. Verses 1-2 of chapter 9. Label the first oracle as a message against the land of Hadrach, Damascus, Hamath, Tyre, and Sidon, and verses 5-7 add the cities of Philistia. Hadrach was in Syria, north of Hamath on the Orontes River, southwest of Aleppo, the Nelson Study Bible. Note on verse 1. Verses 3-4 describe destruction to come on Tyre, reminiscent of Ezekiel's prophecies against Tyre in Ezekiel 26-28. As explained in the Beyond Today Bible commentary on those prophecies, destruction of both ancient Tyre and its end-time counterpart appears to be intended. The greatest ancient destruction of Tyre was accomplished by Alexander the Great, as the unwitting agent of God, when he rebuilt an ancient causeway out to the island fortress, breached its towering walls and set the city ablaze. And this was a forerunner of the destruction God will bring against end-time Tyre. That is the global power block also referred to in prophecy as Babylon the Great. See Revelation 18. Many see Zechariah 9 1-8 as descriptive of Alexander's march down the eastern Mediterranean coastline, as he subdued the Persian territories there. His successes, commentator Charles Feinberg states, are recounted in verses 1-7, and verse 8 notes the deliverance of Jerusalem. After the Battle of Issus, Alexander quickly conquered Damascus, Sidon, Tyre. After 7 months it was burned, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Ekron. The course of his victories in 332 BC was from northern Syria south by the valley of the Orontes River to Damascus. Then along the Phoenician and Philistine coast. The Minor Prophets, 1990, p. 314. This was more than a century after Zechariah lived. Verses 5 to 6 says, "The king shall perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon shall not be inhabited." A mixed race, bastard in the King James Version here, is an inaccurate translation, shall settle in Ashdod. In Alexander's conquest, Ashkelon lost its population, and Gaza was reduced after a siege of a few months. Special mention is made by a contemporary of Alexander, that the king of Gaza was brought alive to the conqueror after the city was taken. The satrap or petty king of the city was bound to a chariot and dragged around the city to his death. Ashdod was to lose its native population during this invasion, being replaced by a mongrel people. It was Alexander's policy to mingle different conquered peoples, p. 316. Notice that verse 1 mentioned the eyes of all people, especially all the tribes of Israel, being on the Lord. That is, on him carrying out his will against these nations. The scattered tribes of Israel on the northern periphery of the Persian Empire experienced a measure of liberation through the conquests of Alexander. Yet this could also signify all the Israelites of the end time witnessing the coming of the Lord to deliver them, as described later in the chapter. See verse 14. Verse 7 describes the removal of unclean and idolatrous practices from the Philistines, and apparently their conversion as their remnant will be for God. This will be fulfilled at the return of Jesus Christ, demonstrating that the earlier verses in this prophecy are likely dual, applying to both ancient and future times. Ekron, probably representative in verse 7 of all the Philistines who are left, will be like the Jebusites, the former inhabitants of Jerusalem, in a good sense. When David conquered Jerusalem, he did not destroy the Jebusites. Instead, they were absorbed into Judah. For example, Araunah in 2 Sam 2:4-16, 1 Chronicles 21:18. So it will be with a remnant of the Philistines. The Expositor's Bible Commentary note on verses 5 to 7. Verse 8 further shows the end-time element of this prophecy, as God promises to never again allow a foreign oppressor to tramp through his people's land. Since the time of Alexander, other oppressors have clearly afflicted the people of God, so the prophecy must refer to the time beyond Christ's return, the Messiah's first and second comings. Zechariah 9:9 contains the prophecy of the saving Messiah arriving on the colt of a donkey. This was fulfilled when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on such a donkey colt a few days before his crucifixion. Matthew 21:2-7, John 12:12-15. The donkey was the mount of princes. Judges 5:10, Judges 10:4, Judges 12:14, and Kings 2 Samuel 16:1-2. Nelson Study Bible, note on Zechariah 9:9. God had forbidden Israel's kings from multiplying horses to themselves. Deuteronomy 17:16. Horses would have been a symbol of exaltation and conquest. Notice that Zechariah 9:10 shows horses and chariots as war implements. The donkey was to symbolize humility and peace, and Israel's anointed kings were to represent the future Messiah, who would humble himself in the cause of ultimate peace. Yet Jesus' first coming is not the primary focus of the remainder of the chapter. Verse 10 will not be fulfilled until Christ's second coming. Note the reference to Ephraim, as representative of the northern tribes. The end of the verse describes the Messiah's global dominion. In the remaining verses we see that God will deliver his people. Yet though Christ speaks peace to the nations, verse 10, and indeed has done so through Scripture for nearly 2,000 years, they hatefully reject him. He must therefore subdue them through means of war, verses 13-15. God will even use the returned captives of Ephraim, representative of the northern tribes, and Judah to fight their enemies. This is not a contradiction of the peaceful donkey imagery. Rather, it exactly parallels an ancient prophecy given about the Messiah by the patriarch Jacob. The scepter, symbol of kingship, shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh, i.e. the Messiah, comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the people. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Genesis 49:10-11. The imagery in this verse describes the warfare that the Messiah will wage to establish his reign. PS 2:110, wine recalls the color of blood. Nelson, note on Genesis 49:11-12. Notice in verse 13 that the Israelites fight against the sons of Greece. The first part of the chapter, verses 1-8, seem to indicate the Greco-Macedonian ruler Alexander the Great as typical of the coming of the Messiah. Yet here we see Greece as the enemy. Some have attempted to link verse 13 with the Jewish fight in the days of the Maccabees against the Seleucid Greek overlords of Syria. Yet while there may have been a forerunner in that divinely assisted struggle, the verse here clearly mentions the presence of not just Judah but also Ephraim, as representative of the northern tribes, and they were not present during the Maccabean period. The actual Hebrew word for Greece is Yavan, written in English as Javan, and the sons of Javan could refer to the nationalities listed in the Table of Nations in Genesis 10. The sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim, verse 4. Javan is generally understood to represent the Greeks. Elisha is typically equated with Cyprus. Tarshish is often thought to denote southern Europeans of the western Mediterranean, such as Spain, site of ancient Tartessus. Kittim, denoting western lands, could refer to people of Cyprus, Crete, Sicily, Italy, and perhaps other western Mediterranean areas. Dodanim, spelled Rhodanim in 1 Chronicles 1:7, may correspond to the Rhodians and other Aegean peoples, so southern Europeans could be intended in Zechariah 9:13 by Javan and his sons. Interestingly, this is where the descendants of ancient Tyre and Sidon may be found today, as well as the descendants of ancient Babylon. So the end-time Babylon, centered at Rome, may well be in mind in Zechariah 9:13. Indeed, as this latter-day system descends from ancient Greece, as from ancient Persia and Babylon before it, those who are part of it can rightly be described as descendants of Greece. Yet the reference here may also be to the Hellenization spread of Greek culture begun under Alexander. By the time of Jesus' first coming, the Jews regarded all non-Jews as Greek, a term frequently used in the New Testament for any and all Gentiles. Foreseeing this divide, God in Zechariah 9:13 may simply be contrasting the Israelites with their Gentile enemies. Even today, Greece is reckoned as the birthplace of Western civilization. The returned exiles of Israel and Judah, though reduced to mainly sling stones for weapons, will fight together against their foes, and will miraculously gain victory as Christ returns in power and glory to save them. Verses 13-16. In verse 15, Zechariah describes the victory banquet of God's people in celebration of his victory over the nations and securing of Jerusalem. The people will be filled with drink like sacrificial basins were filled with blood, and they will be filled with meat like the corners of the sacrificial altar. Nelson note on verse 15, this mighty deliverance will come in that day, verse 16, the day of the Lord, and the people of God will experience great blessing and prosperity, verses 16-17. And